Okay, so first of all, I'm not a professor of game design.
Yes, excuse me.
I'm a professor of computer graphics, and I know a bit of game design. And then Uta asked me to give this talk and told me the title, Aspects of Game Development and Game Design. I said, wow, this is going to be a long talk. And then knowing about the purpose of this workshop, so namely that LocJam workshop, I said, okay, game development, all this technological stuff that translators and localizers have to do in this context, they know already, or they get to know in the workshop taught by Uta. So I will concentrate on more or less the game design aspect, or one game design aspect. So in the course of the next hour or so, what we're going to cover is, first of all, we're going to try to understand what a game is. Probably everybody knows what a game is. But I edited this to what a game is all about. So what is the most important part of a game? And we're going to talk about the most important elements of a game. And we're actually going to see that games is all about fun. Now everybody knows what fun is. Really? Do you know what fun is? I'm going to try to explain a bit what fun is in the context of games, and to explain a bit different kinds of fun which are important for games. Not only important for the game as a whole, but also for the language being used in games. This is going to be my fourth and last part. We're going to look at how language can provide fun in games. And this is basically what your task is going to be at the contest. You're going to localize a game, but I'm going to try to show you that localization is more than just translating what is said in the game and so on. Before we start, a few words about the examples I've chosen to use in my talk. They all stem from games that I have played, I'm playing, I will be playing. Well, actually I started playing but stopped. And they might not be, it might not be general consensus that what I'm going to show with these examples, but I think, to my understanding, is that these examples are kind of well illustrate what I'm going to tell you. So if you don't know the games, feel free to play them. Otherwise, just look them up or whatever. It's not about the games, it's more about the content. Okay, let's start with what is a game. And with the question of what is a game, I'm borrowing from two of my actually favorite books in this area. First one is by Jane McGonigal. No, her name is not Minerva. And there's an I in her name. The first book is by Jane McGonigal, Reality is Broken. I think everybody who does something with games should read this book. It's really great. And her obviously very short definition of a game is games are unnecessary obstacles we volunteer to tackle. So what does this have to do with games? Well, actually, she is explaining it in a fairly lengthy chapter, and she actually defines four different points that are really important for games. First is the goal. Every game has to have a goal. Every game has to have something that the player hopes to achieve by playing the game. So, free the princess, save the planet, collect candies, whatever. Build a city. Then we have rules. Rules as a second important part, or second most important part, kind of place limitations on how the player can achieve his goals. Okay? Free the princess. If this is the house where the princess is in, there's an open door, you go in, grab the princess, and you have she's free. Would not be fun. So there are restrictions, there are limitations, these restrictions and limitations in achieving the goal are defined within the rules. The third point is a feedback system that tells the player at every moment in time how far he or she is away from reaching the goal. So the player is always has knowledge of what is he doing right now, what is the state of the game world, whatever, and how far is he away from freeing the princess. And the fourth and probably most interesting part in this definition is voluntary participation. Voluntary participation means that everyone who's playing a game does not have to play a game. He or she does it voluntarily. He or she voluntarily accepts the rules, accepts the goals, and accepts the feedback. And only if this is the case, then there's fun in playing the game. So, it has nothing to do with video games, it has nothing to do with computers at all, but it's probably a very interesting definition of game. And the second one, which is closer to video games, stems from Ralph Costa, who wrote a book called A Theory of Fun for Game Design. Well, kind of contradictory, theory and fun, but you will see it works. And he explicitly defines a video game as an interactive experience that provides the player with an increasingly challenging sequence of patterns which he or she learns and eventually masters. So there are a few key terms in this definition. The first one is interaction. Every game is an interaction between player and game, or players. Imagine a card game where you don't have like a computer to play with, then you interact with your co-players and you interact with cards. But anyway, interaction is pretty important for any game. The second thing that is really important is challenge. Games only work if players are challenged to reach a goal, if players are challenged to do something, and if players can overcome challenges. This brings us back to Jane McGonigal's definition, unnecessary burdens, obstacles, okay? An obstacle is a challenge. And the third point, and this is, in this definition, the most important one, is learning and mastering. And Ralph Costa himself said in one of his talks, learning and mastering are at the heart of what we call fun. Now, there are mostly students here. Learning and fun. There's no, you all blank faces. Learning and fun, blank faces. Nobody would agree that learning is fun. Well, you do agree, of course. So, why is that so important? And Ralph Costa actually comes to the conclusion that fun is the most important thing in video games. And actually, humans are, even if you don't believe it, humans are driven by the eagerness to learn new things. Humans are driven by the eagerness to improve themselves, to improve their knowledge, to improve their skills. And learning, improving does not actually mean that you have to learn like quantum physics or relativity theory, or you have to learn a completely new language. Learning is every single new thing that you encounter during the day. If you get something new, you learn something. And actually there is a biochemical reaction appearing in your body. There is dopamine or the release of dopamine is increased, and dopamine is the one of the hormones who is actually known to make you feel well, basically. And actually, that is this sentence: "Fun is a neurochemical reward to encourage us to keep trying." And what actually happens is you end up in a spiral. You learn something, you get something new. Dopamine is released. You have fun. You start to, okay, this was a good thing. I want to have more of this. And so you try to learn more, get more, improve more, and so on. And so fun is basically the emotional response for learning, and to bring it to one simple sentence, fun is just another word for learning. So, all your students here, fun is just another word for learning. Even if it is relativity theory, quantum physics, or computer science, or mathematics. Fun is just another word for learning. And in games, fun arises out of mastery. So you do your tasks, you at some point in time you know how to solve that problem, you learned how to solve the problem, you're feeling well, you're trying again, and you're doing it better, and so on. So it arises out of mastery, out of comprehension, and with games, so of course the learning is the drug, and actually dopamine. If we're talking about dopamine has a lot to do with drugs and with perception of drugs. So fun it's all about fun. And yes, games is all about fun. Nobody would voluntarily engage in activities that are not fun. Would you? You would, if I would pay your money. But this is a different story. Fun is intrinsic motivation. Fun comes from inside of your body, from inside of your mind. And you yourself are motivated to do something. Well, I could motivate you externally, so-called extrinsic motivation. I could pay your money for doing some stupid things. Or you would do it, but not because it's fun, but just because you get the money. So extrinsic motivation, that's a totally different topic here, and I'm not going to go into detail here, but nobody would play a game that isn't fun. And I can be sure that this is true. So I'm not going to ask you the question, what is fun? Because we have like 30, 40 people in this room here. If I would ask everybody what is fun, then I would get like 30, 40 answers. Actually, there is no general consensus of what is fun, but in the context of game design, in the context of games, there are a few, well, general things that are required, regarded as fun. And actually, Marc Leblanc, one kind of well-known game designer, came up with a taxonomy of so-called game pleasures. He came up with 8 terms: sensation, fantasy, narrative, challenge, fellowship, discovery, expression, and submission, which are, in his point of view, the most important so-called game pleasures. And we're going to go through all of these 8 game pleasures now. More or less away from languages, but also with a kind of a point of view on language. And you will see what they mean and why they are fun. Okay, number 1, sensation. Sensation, graphics. Pretty cool. If you have a video game and you have stunning graphics, you could possibly play that game just because of the graphics. Yeah. Music, the same. If you have a video game which has really great music, you could possibly play the game just because of graphics and good music. I want to show you one example. Ending this so abruptly, but it is a 3 minutes piece. So, but and you couldn't actually see the graphics so nicely, but Final Fantasy XIV has astounding graphics. If you're, it's not that every nitty-gritty detail is very, very, very nice, but like as a whole, you come into that world and you say, wow. And then you have this orchestral sound in every region, a different piece of music, which changes from night to day, and you always have this pretty nice music composed by one of the best video game composers and performed by a symphony orchestra. This is just for sensation, or in an essential aspect, this is just great. And actually, I happen to play, it's an MMORPG, and I happen to play in this game just walking around for half an hour, just walking around through this world, looking at the scenery and listening to the music. And actually I have this game open in the background just to have the music running, sometimes. But sensation is also language. The next example is from a game newly released a few months ago by a small company located in Halle. They made a game and they actually have a very, very nice speaker who did the whole voice acting, and the part I'm showing you now is just the voice acting. Usually there is, normally there is some music underneath, but I could only get the voice acting, so it doesn't sound as good as in-game, but just listen to the wordings and listen to the words he chooses and listen to the accent.
Beyond the human world was a hidden realm where the gods dwelled. Among these most powerful beings lived tiny creatures whose playfulness wouldn't let you believe they were gods at all. My story is about them. Foxes, innocent spirits, enjoying their lives in blissful immortality, until corruption ripped them apart from each other.
So this is the game I will be playing. So when I start that game, and this is the intro sequence, it's actually the first few sentences in the game. A bit music underneath, and wow, I actually I was shivering by this sound and this words, and I know the person, or I know one of the persons who worked in that game. I just told her, this is so great, and your intro sequence is, yeah, but language is also sensation. What's more is tactile feedback. If you play board games and the haptics you have is these figurines or whatever, or movement. If you think about playing with Kinect or Wii. So sensation means altogether games need to provide rich sensory input. Otherwise, it's not fun. Number 2, fantasy. Fantasy means that you build up a consistent fantasy world from what you saw in the game, what you read in the text, what you heard in the audio, and what you experience in the world. Basically, fantasy makes you imagining yourself somebody who you are not. Now, I'm not that guy. Obviously not. I mean, if I would run around here like this, it would probably be fun, but I'm not that guy, but I'm playing that guy. And sometimes in-game, and this, it depends on the kind of, or the amount of escapism, and this is called here. Like how far I'm able to escape the real world depends on how I play. Either I see this guy as somebody I'm controlling, or I see this guy as that's me playing. So fantasy enables me to dive into the game world and say, okay, this is me. This is a famous black mage who killed all those creatures. Who is the warrior of light? Who is with his friends, who actually can save that world. And I kind of feel the eager to do so. But only happens if there is space for imagination. It only happens if there is room to let me think about what I'm doing, to let me actually fantasize about, okay, this is the world I'm living in. Number 3, narrative. Narrative or story. Games usually tell stories. Games have to tell stories. That's what games are for. Games tell stories in two different ways. First way is there's this prescribed linear or non-linear way, which is defined for development in the game design, which is told via cutscenes, it's told via dialogues, it's told via text boxes, and so on. That you see in the upper image is an in-game cutscene with some dialogue boxes where you get some additional information. But narrative is more than just this predefined story. Narrative is also the story that you as a player experience in a sequence of dramatic encounters of dramatic events, or a dramatic sequence of events. So let's see the lower image. This is no cutscene. This is a regular in-game shot. This guy suddenly showed up in the world, and a few people around. Okay, there is this dramatic event. This guy showed up. We have to do something about him. And this is a kind of story that evolves just by the events that happen to occur in the game. Not just in role-playing games, not just in adventure games, not just in MMORPGs or whatever, but also in any other game. There are events, and you yourself make a story out of it that enriches the story which is given by the game itself. And there also could be completely made-up stories. If you know about the MMORPG scene, there's a big role-playing scene of gamers who actually imagine being somewhere else and doing really great things to actually live their second lives in that game. So games should tell a story. I said should, but actually games need to tell a story. Okay, number 4, challenge. Challenge is the first point, or the first aspect, where we obviously learn in games. And actually the core of every game is a problem to be solved. Save the princess, rescue the princess, save the planet, whatever. Connect the candies. So every problem, and my students know that I usually say there are no problems, there are only challenges. Every problem actually is a challenge. Problem is the negative word for challenge. You have a challenge that you're going to overcome, that you're going to tackle, and this is actually the most motivating aspect in games. This is the challenge, that's the game pleasure, number 4. It's actually the most motivating, and for lots of players this is the only and the motivating aspect in games. They want to have challenges, they want to have epic fights, they want to have epic enemies, whatsoever. They want to kill these enemies, fight these enemies. And why is it so? Well, mastering a challenge leads to positive emotion. Everybody knows, students for example, mastering a challenge, passing an exam, is mastering a challenge. Passing an exam for the second time is remastering it. Passing an exam is mastering a challenge, and you're feeling good afterwards. You're feeling great afterwards. You could dance, actually. This is a lot of positive emotion that comes out of mastering a challenge, but only if that challenge was A, challenging enough, and B, not too challenging. So the level of the challenge has to match your level of experience, your level of knowledge and skill. So if you would have to write an exam about quantum mechanics, if I stick with this example from the beginning, that challenge would be too high, and you would probably fail the exam. which would not.
Most
of us. I said probably. Most of you would most of you would probably fail the exam, and you would not have any positive emotions afterwards. I mean, if you pass the exam, then the positive emotion would be so great, so big. But anyway, so games should be challenging. Not challenging games are not fun. Number 5, fellowship. Playing games has always been a social activity, is a social activity, and will always be a social activity. Playing games, in the beginning of playing games, people were sitting at home with their family, a few cards in their hands, or a few whatever pieces of wood, playing games. And playing games was the best way of socializing. With the advent of computer games, in the beginning, that socializing aspect actually went away from games because the beginning of computer games actually were single-player games where you had no chance of socializing in-game. But with the internet and the connected world nowadays, socializing in-game gets easier. But fellowship, what LeBlanc said about fellowship is not just the socializing in-game, but also the building of a community or the feeling of being part of a community just around that game. And if you look at the aspects or look at the possibilities you have, they're numerous, they're enormous. You could, you could be together in-game, yeah? Talk in-game, sit there and wait in-game, whatever. You have electronic means of communication. You have certain forums, chat channels, whatever, where you can meet other players, talk to them. And you could also build a community around your friends. Yeah? You could. That's what you do every Monday morning. You're talking about the games you played on the weekend. At least the students here. So you talk about the games you played from person to person, and that is what he means with fellowship. So games are some kind of social frameworks. Games offer a way to socialize, offer a way to be together, give a topic for talking, give a topic for socializing, and so on. Okay, number 6, discovery. This is the second part where in an obvious way we learn in games. Seek and discover, or seek and find something new. And this is what most people also say is the biggest fun in games. Discovering new aspects of the game, discovering new parts of the world of the game world, exploring the whole world, finding hidden features, getting new abilities, working with these new abilities, playing with these new abilities. And even though I put up 3 very different examples, like this is Aeon, where you have like all those gray areas in the map you haven't discovered yet, and if you go there, then suddenly the map becomes clear and you know where it is, and okay, I've discovered a new piece of land, and I learned something new. When you unlock new abilities in game, and in this case you got a new job and you got new abilities, you can fight better or whatever. Or even games like Candy Crush Saga, where there are these strange candies here. What do they do? And once you find out, you discovered something new. Oh, great! If I combine these two, then that happens. You discover something new, and this is actually the second way where you, in an obvious way, learn something in games. And discovering something new, releasing of dopamine, feeling good, wanting more. This is the circle that leads. So games should leave room to discover new things. Number 7, expression. Some people really want to express, or for some people it is really important to being able to express themselves and create things. Express themselves, creating things is often not connected actually with the goal of the game. So you saw that character before, 2 or 3 slides before. That's the same character, just wearing different cloth. So actually it doesn't matter what kind of cloth this character wears. It could achieve the goal of the game with either or. Or like Farmville. The aspect of Farmville is, well, I don't know what the goal is, but I'm sorry. One aspect, there's actually no goal. Coming up with plowing the land and putting up seeds and harvesting fruits over and over again in a cycle. But you can do this without neatly arrange your farm that it looks nice. Yeah? But a lot of people actually did arrange their farms so they look nice. And this was a big aspect of playing Farmville, who had the nicest layout of their farms and of their gardens. So the self-expression and creating things is often not connected with the goal itself, and it's not just the look and outfit of the character, but it's also the way how people play the game. You learn a lot about people when playing together with people. How they react, how they play. Some of them are very polite, say hello and goodbye every time. Some of them are completely impolite, they don't say a single word if you play with them together. Some of them are pretty rude, some of them are pretty polite. So you learn a lot about people if you see how they play, if you see how they react in games. So as a game pleasure, games are a stage to express yourself. And number 8, which is in the first glance, if you look at the word, it sounds a bit strange, submission. Submission means that you actually leave the real world behind. You leave the real world behind and enter into a set of rules and meaning that is probably more enjoyable. That you probably like better than being at university or being at home and helping your mother clean the kitchen, or well, it is probably more enjoyable helping your mother clean the kitchen than being in university. But submission means that just you leave your real world, you suspend your disbelief in saying, okay, magic? No, magic is not real. Well, I don't care. I'm living in that game world, or I'm feeling in that game world where magic happens. And I know that magic happens, and with the magic capabilities I have, I can, damage people, I can heal people, I can do whatever I want because I can do magic. So that disbelief that you have, magic isn't true, or magic can't happen. If you suspend this disbelief, then you're really into what the submission means, and you actually adhere to the rules of the game world without thinking about, and this is what also another word would be immersion. You're in that game world, you're feeling in that game. So you leave the real world behind, the university, your mother with the kitchen, and that's number 8. So if you just recap for these 8 things, games should provide rich sensory input. Games need to leave space for imagination, should tell a story, be challenging, be seen as a social framework, should be uncharted territory with room to explore, to exploration or to discover new things, provide a stage to express yourself, and provide actually a place to leave the real world behind. So these are the 8 most important game pleasures at LeBlanc. found out, but actually there's more. There's many more. There are many more pleasures where people can get fun out of it. Humor. You're all probably laughing about Monty Python, which is not a game, but this is pretty nice humor for some of us. Anticipation is one of these pleasures, or surprise, thrill, triumph, and so on. And always remember, different people enjoy different things. So things I enjoy, games I like, or things I like in games, do not necessarily have the same that you like, or whoever likes. These 8 game pleasures are actually thought as a guiding framework for some, if not all, aspects of game design. Actually, LeBlanc said this is the guiding framework for all aspects of game design, or I say for some. So if you're looking at these game pleasures and figuring out, okay, I want to meet this, I want to make a game which is sensory rich, then I know that at least a big amount of people will like the game because they like good graphics and they like good music. And in the end, ultimately, the job of a game is to give pleasure. I keep repeating myself, because games are all about fun. The job of a game is provide pleasure, but it's true. If you create a game which is not fun, nobody would buy the game. Nobody would play the game. So, in all aspects, fun is in the first place. And in the rest of my talk, I just want to talk about language pleasures. I just call it language pleasures. So how does language fit in there? These are more general things about games I've been talking about now. But how does language fit in there? Actually, with language, humans have one of the most powerful tools to provide pleasure and fun. Language is one of the most powerful communication tools, if not the communication tool. You have so many possibilities with language to provide pleasure and fun. You have written language. We're going to see an example here. You have spoken language. We heard one in the beginning. You have this conflict, or this distinction between foreign languages and native language. I like French, even though I don't speak it very well. But I like the sound of it. I like this music, rhythm, whatever in the French language. Other people say, French, no. I know you are French, so that's not why I said I like French, but
I will not do my presentation in French, I promise.
What a pity. But I have had arguments with people when I said, oh, I like the French language. How could you? People like German language, some people dislike the German language, and so on. Spoken language, the sound of a foreign language, the sound of the rhythm of the language is something you can provide. Even made-up languages. You can learn Klingon, actually. The Star Trek race, Klingons, anyway. There is a dictionary, there is a grammar. You can actually take courses in Klingon. You can learn Esperanto, which is a completely made up language. They are fun. J.R.R. Tolkien actually built a language like for the Alps. Okay. In Lord of the Rings, I always keep mixing those two up. In Lord of the Rings, actually, he created a language for them. With a grammar, with a vocabulary, with everything. Cool. So, in the next few slides, I'm going to give you a few examples of what we can do with languages in games and what is important. In my point of view. I'm not a language person, but you are the language people, so. Number one, language as sensory pleasure. Rather is the obvious. Always use correct language. Use correct spelling, use correct grammar, and so on. Nothing is worse than reading a sentence which is not correct. And even though my examples, there might be some not correct sentences, I didn't write them. I took them out of the game. So one example you've seen in the beginning. I just written down the text once again. Beyond the human world was a hidden realm where the gods dwelled. How often did you hear the word dwell in English text? It's pretty rare. Yeah? Playfulness, innocent spirits enjoying their lives in blissful. This is just nice language. Right? Or another example, once again from Final Fantasy, and once again a video. Just mind the language and watch the language. And
5 years since that fateful day, since the 7th Umbral era changed the world forever. The time has come for the heroes to return. On a windswept isle in the southwestern corner of the realm, amidst the roiling waves of the Rotano Sea, lies the maritime city-state of Linsa Lominsa. To this haven for bandits and brigands, cutthroats and curs, seekers of both freedom and fortune, comes a lone adventurer. Lone yet not alone, for the hero's arrival has drawn the gaze of the nation's patron deity, Lim Lane. What realm-shaking fate has she descried in the churning waters of this mortal's future? Through peril and hardship, discovery and triumph, may the navigator guide this brave soul on his life's voyage. Till sea swallows all.
Stop here, but again, if you there are many words I've never heard for a long time, like amidst the roiling waves, amidst. People have tried to make this language sound nice, to make very a nice, interesting sound, interesting language. So a pleasant language. That was the first example. Second example. Language should match the game, and actually I haven't that many examples, or that I have a concrete example here, but the obvious is language should actually match the setting, the time, and the audience. For example, in a futuristic outer space setting, you would not like to hear some medieval language. So a futuristic outer space game is probably better. There's probably better to have some kind of technologically oriented language and stuff like this. Or in a medieval game, you just expect to have some Latin or medieval terms, or some ancient terms, or some terms which are not actually used nowadays, not anymore nowadays. Or an obvious example, number 3, a game which is for young children would use a completely different language than a game which is for adults. You have to address young children with in a completely different language than you address adults. So, but this is more or less obvious. By the way, these numbers here, whoops, this way. These numbers here just should indicate what game pleasures are connected with them, just to give you an example. Okay, example number 3. Language should tell a story. Well, the obvious is stories are told by language. Right? The story in-game is told by language. But the bonus here is you can use the language to tell a completely different story or to tell additional stories. You could choose to use dialects. You could choose to use different jargon, different terminologies, which should be at least consistent throughout the language versions. But with these kind of techniques, you could build up different side stories from the main story. For example, dialects or jargon. If you're traveling through Germany, starting in the north, you hear people talking differently than people from the south. So I'm looking at people north, south, whatever. And people in Dresden talk completely different. But these regional differences can be used in games. For example, once again, Final Fantasy XIV. There are beast tribes like sylphs, kobolds, some kind of fishman, some kind of birdman, whatever. And they all have their own jargon, their own dialect. And I tried to look it up through the various language versions, if this is the way, or if it's the same in the various language versions. And I came up with actually my favorite sentence in that game. It's the most. I was so laughing when I saw this. The context is you have a quest to fulfill where you have to free one of these sylphs from a carnivorous plant. So there's almost eaten by a carnivorous plant. You have to destroy the plant and free that small animal-like creature. And what that small animal-like creature says afterwards is the most fun in German. Wenn die deinige nicht gekommen wäre, wäre die meinige wohl zur rohkostigen geworden. The fun thing is, the way the game designers let those sylphs speak is die deinige, die meinige, die abenteurige, der rohkostige, der laufende, der singende, der tollpatschige. So you have all these this very distinctive jargon these guys use. Okay, I looked it up in English and in French, in English. It's the walking one, this one, that one. It's also some kind of distinguished language. In French, I think the main part here is that it kind of rhymes. I don't see these.
I don't know the game and I haven't seen it. The French translation seems very boring.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it because some French people are here. The French is just, well, I know, if you wouldn't have saved me, thanks for saving me from that unlucky event.
I think it's a great example because it shows that
Yeah.
there was an issue in French and they didn't know what to do with it, so they just ignored it.
Okay, it might be, but at least it rhymes somehow.
Yes.
So, and looking at the Japanese one, I don't know Japanese, but I asked some people who at least have some clue about Japanese, and I asked them to translate. And actually the Japanese version is also kind of funny, but first of all, there are some part of this who actually indicate that this is not spoken language. There's some part of it that are to give you a hint that this is special way of speaking, like die deinige. And there is something about land vegetables in there. So, so it's probably also, yeah, but the point is not that this dialogue is funny, but the point is that with these distinctive ways of speaking, you create a story around these beast tribes, around these animals, creatures, whatever. They have their own life, they have their own language, and they all talk like this, and so on. And you kind of, again, room for imagination. You imagine them being a local group of people belonging together and whatever. So, example number 4, discover a new language. This is a fun one. The obvious is you might encounter languages in games you've never heard of. Yeah? Made-up languages. Yeah? These can be written, spoken, whatever. And the bonus is, use these languages. Create them in some kind of way that they actually make sense. Might be written, might be spoken, might be everything. What they did is, it's pretty hard to see, but the written alphabet of the Eosean language is basically English with some strange lettering. Some letters are mirrored, some letters are kind of different, but this says Revenant's Fall. And if you know what it means, you can read it. This says Köthen Central Highlands. If you know what it means, you can actually read it. But it's a made-up language. It's a made-up written language, basically. You can understand it, and it's great. You discover, whoa, this is a language. I can read it, and fun, positive emotions. Yeah. And you can even go this far that you build up a grammar and lettering for this language. And actually, the head localization officer of Final Fantasy XIV, Michael Koji Fox, he tells a lot about his job, but he tells a lot about what they actually do to make Final Fantasy XIV such a great experience. And he actually explained once that these sylphs, and we're talking about the slide before, like die Deinige, die Meinige, they have a certain way of being named. All other beast tribes also have a certain way of being named. And one of the beast tribes, the Ixali, these is bird people, he actually defined how they are named. And he said, okay, they have a first name and a clan name or a family name. The first name has two factors. The first factor is the gender, and the second factor is the direction of the wind, the direction in which the wind was blowing at the time of birth. So then, for male individuals, you have these suffixes that define the wind direction. For female individuals, you have these, and then you have one letter which is added to the name, which is given by the family, and you come up with names like Sutali Huelok. So Sutali, right? Utali, where is it? Utali. Well, north wind was blowing at the time of her birth, and S is given by her family, and that's the clan name. So and so to make this game really consistent, to make the world consistent, he actually came up with his grammar rules, he came up with syntactic rules, he came up with stuff to actually define kind of a new language. And once you discover this, again, you learned something, you got positive emotions out of it, and you had fun. And and probably the last example happens once in a while. Probably the last example, you can use language to establish a relationship to the players. The obvious is you use language in dialogues, but the way is, how do you use language in dialogues? First of all, you have to treat the player politely and with respect. You don't say, hey, what are you doing? I'm not going to go on this sentence any further. But, for example, es tut mir leid, dich nach dem harten Kampf gleich wieder mit einer Bitte zu überfallen. Okay, you respect that he actually needs rest, or she, but okay, I have a matter that needs to be solved, please help me. So it's respectful, politely. It's bonus number 2, and this is really great. Remind the player of recent victories and lots of fails. So, I mean, sometimes it's actually going on my nerves how often I was told in Final Fantasy that I am the warrior of light and I have whatever. But on the other hand, once in a while, knowing that, wow, I actually, yes, you did that. You did that. You are great. That keeps the motivation, keeps the will to play the game. And actually, we should include that in our teaching. We should remind students that you actually pass discrete mathematics. So you will also pass stochastics or whatever, and you passed localization 1, so it should be no problem. You are the hero. I have heard much and more of your exploits. By your hand, the black wolf is slain and his ultimate weapon destroyed, and so on. You possess the strength and courage, so make him feel valuable, basically. And number 3, increase challenge but not fear. I could say, okay, I have a task for you. I want you to fight that enemy. That enemy is so strong that nobody before has ever managed to fight that enemy. Well, even that it's true. I would never ever tell this to somebody. Write that discrete mathematics test. This test is so hard that nobody before has ever passed that test. Okay, so you guys from the first semester, will you ever write a test? No. Yes, that is a challenge. Yes, it is hard. But there are people who manage it. And you can do it. You have the knowledge, you have the power, you can do it. And that's the same here. Du hast die Mühe, die Kraft, einmal kurz zu erforschen und dem Albtraum Einheit zu gebieten. Increase the challenge, or tell him it's a challenge, but don't make him fear. Don't make him play with it. Okay, these are 5 examples and if we're going to wrap this up, I actually managed to stay within that hour, that's great. To wrap things up, I always want to stick with this in my thoughts. The ultimate job of a game is to give pleasure. And everything that you do when designing a game, and developing a game, and creating a game is think about the pleasure that you can provide with that game. Language is just one part. That's what people usually say. Well, language. We need graphics that is marvelous. That is that only the best graphics cards can handle. We need sound. Okay, we need a Berlin Symphony Orchestra. Let's record the soundtrack, whatever. But language is, in my point of view, an important part. And I'm not saying this because there are so many localization people. The most important part is that you use language correctly. Nothing's worse, nothing's more distracting than false texts, false language in the game. And the most important from a design point of view is use language for storytelling and basically to enhance immersion. And now you can pick these 8 game pleasures and say, okay, how can we use language to increase fellowship, to encourage fellowship? How can I use language to increase challenge? How can I use language to increase narrative, whatever? And then think about when you translate a game, and your task in that contest will be to translate a game. And again, Michael Koji Fox, the head translator from Final Fantasy, once said, what they're going to do is they give the Japanese version. There is a Japanese version, and the Japanese version is actually not translated. Well, there is translated, yes, but they give their localization people the liberty to actually tell the story in their language, and that's actually what you can see in many dialogues. Like, for example, they came up with a language for their beast tribes, even though the French is boring, I'm sorry. They came up with different languages for beast tribes and so on, but they let the localization people not translate the game, but actually localize the game. And you can actually feel this when playing the game. So tell the story in your language, given by or guided by the story from the game design and from the original version. That's my talk so far, and we've had just a few laughs, so I actually went into the web yesterday and was looking up something that should never ever happen to me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for your
Questions?
talk. Because I think you emphasized already on two, for me especially, two aspects, fun and language. And linguistically, a game is something completely different compared to technical documentation, for example. And yes, a translation mustn't be boring and has to be very creative, and therefore in localizing a game, transcreation sometimes is needed instead of pure translation. And I think we saw some very interesting examples. So thank you very much. I don't know whether there are questions. Please answer them here.
Oh, if you answer the questions, great.
Answer them here, excuse me. And if not, we have the opportunity to talk to each other in small rounds, and we have a small break before we continue our program. So far, thank you very much, Stefan.
Thank you.